And then let's introduce our last final speaker. Santiago brings an impressive 25 years of IVD experience to the table. From 1998 to 2016, he was employed at Werfen with 15 years dedicated to the Chinese market. It can be said that he is absolute expert in formulating Chinese marketing strategies for international brands. Santiago will share insights into how a European company successfully navigated the complex for marketing IVD products in China. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Mandy. And thank you, Karen and Caroline, for such interesting presentations. It's my turn now to share with you my thoughts on how to market in China and how to be successful. A little bit about me first. As Mandy mentioned, I have 25 years of IVD experience. I started in finance, commercial management, and consulting lately. I've worked geographically across the world with a special focus in China for the past 15 years. I arrived in China in 2008 to establish China direct business operation in central lab and point of care business, where we established two different strategies through direct distribution and through an exclusive distribution for central lab. In the first few years, we were able to register over 200 IVD products at that time of the CFDA. And back in 2012, we finally took over our last exclusive distribution for China from Beckman Coulter and took it under our own umbrella and managed it since then. And in 2014, only 6 years after starting, we were able to hit $100 million of revenue and over 200 employees on the ground. In 2017, I established AI&C Limited. That is a boutique bespoke advisory and management consulting firm, and I've been offering services to life science business, including how to market in China. Let me start with a statement, and Caroline has been talking about the cultural differences between China and the rest of the world. And here I'm saying quite the opposite. I mean, if you have already a product line that is successful outside China, if you have a business in Europe, a business in Japan or the US, there's nothing wrong with your product line whatsoever. So that would theoretically allow you to be successful in China as well. And most of you in the audience already have a product. Some of you might be already in China. Some of you might be considering coming to China. But if you already have that history today of success in any of the areas mentioned, you should be confident that your product is right. So we need to focus on other aspects of the strategy to make sure when you come to China or where you continue developing China, you are successful. I'd like to split those success factors into the internal factors and then others that are more external or non-dependent of your own organization. The most important ones are internal, and this means how you build your own organization, how you develop and establish that. The first one is what I call commitment. And commitment is the key to any China strategy and represents ownership, senior management, headquarters being behind the will to come to China. As I say here, the road is going to be long and bumpy. Caroline also mentioned that. So it's required that this support and commitment to the project is there from the very, very top. And remember, we've all seen it, and whether we like it or not, it happens. Our internal organizations, most of the time, is our biggest hurdle to move forward. So having the support from the top will be key to make it successful. As an example, for example, mention those 200 regulatory registrations in China. And very soon we were able to convince our R&D and our manufacturing to release new products from the very beginning, already adding all the requirements at the time for the CFDA filing. Yeah. So at the same time that products were coming out of the pipeline with all the files for the FDA filing for the CE mark at the time, it was also a success to be able to get that as well for China from the beginning. It will save a lot of effort. It will save a lot of time. So it was a successful story based on that commitment from management helping us to get that change in place. The second success factor for me, for China, is to have a clear value proposition. Yeah, you have to clearly understand what is going to be what you bring to China, and it's not a focus on cost. It has to be a focus on value. Yeah, what will you bring to the Chinese users? Is it unique? Is it innovative? Can address unmet needs? Health economics is extremely important nowadays in China, and very important as well. Can you differentiate yourself from the rest of the competitors? Yeah? And remember that this value proposition for China doesn't need to be unique to China. Yeah? If as we said a few slides back, you are already successful in some countries, there's a reason for that success. So understand the reason and make sure that if it's applicable to China, then you can use it and bring it to China. If not, you will have to come up with your own value proposition from China. And once you have it addressed, when you have it identified, make sure that you work within your teams, especially the strategic marketing team, to make sure that all the positioning, messaging, and the value statement is built around it in the right language, as Caroline has said. Yeah? In our case, in one of our main business lines, we're facing a very strong competition from a player with a very wide panel of assays, but most of them were manual assays. Yeah? So we were able to come in with an automatic testing solution, initially with many less, but with a shorter panel, but it took time with those registrations to catch up. But the fact that we're bringing automation, easy of use, reproducibility was a significant differentiation for customers to welcome us to their labs. So identify your opportunity and then be consistent through your strategy on it. The third internal success factor, in my experience, is to have an action plan. Yeah, don't be a cowboy for China. Don't be a mercenary. Make sure there is a comprehensive action plan that includes all the possible courses of action, includes all the resources required, identify major milestones on the way, and as well the expected timings and why those expected timings. Yeah, and remember that this plan is not your plan; it's the company's plan. It has to be backed by everybody. Everybody has to come on board and to bring their perspective and their input. And sometimes, remember, that's hard work to conciliate everybody into the same picture. But it's very important to build that commitment that we talked at the beginning, and to get all the help throughout the implementation of that action plan. Yeah? And very important, once you have it, constantly check back on the action plan to monitor progress, to keep the commitment, and to keep the teams engaged. Yeah? In that case, in my experience, what we did is we set up what we call the China strategy meetings. That were monthly meetings where we would, where there would be a core of people that would be invited on a regular basis, and then other people, depending on the topics that was hot that month or that period, would be invited to participate and bring their opinions and so on and so forth. But it's very important to have that action plan always clear on the table in your mind and following it. The next internal success factor, believe it or not, is communication. It's very limited, the number of companies that the China business operations is autonomous and independent from headquarters and company. Yeah, the majority of us still work with headquarters, work with factories across the world, and teams all over different continents. So it's very important to keep that communication channel open Remember, it has to be a two-way communication. It's not only to China. You're not the only one that has to receive all the information. You have to provide as well information to others so they can have the right feedback to you at the right time. It has to be constant. It's not because, oh, we'll talk about it in 3 weeks at the strategy meeting. No, you pick up the phone, you send an email, you set up a call as required, you take advantage of a visit, or you set up a visit, you do specific reviews or topics. So communication is a key factor. Having everybody up to speed on what's happening is going to be a reason for success. And it has to be open, honest and comprehensive, addressing all topics. And when we make mistakes, we let them know immediately. When we need to change things, we let them know immediately. And when we get good success and achievements as well, we need to make them quickly known to everybody. Yeah? Remember that as soon as we lose communication, we go back to before the beginning. Yeah? It's very difficult once you've broken the communication to rebuild the trust that you're going to be losing with the rest of the team. Yeah? In this case, for example, we were reviewing the business plan instead of once a year. We were doing every 6 months, basically. Imagine how challenging it is to do a budget review or a business plan review on a yearly basis. So we decided to make the effort and do it every 6 months to make sure that everybody was fully engaged every 6 months on what was happening and what were the expectations. Last but not least, you have to have an organization in China that is agile and flexible. Yeah? China IVD market is the most dynamic of all markets in the world. Competition is always one step ahead, or so it feels. And as Karen has mentioned, remember that 60% of your competition is going to be domestic. So most likely you've never heard of them, you've never seen them. So it's going to be a challenge. So being able to adapt to what that competition is offering, doing, and bringing to the customers is important. As well, the customers' needs and expectations evolve day by day. I mean, the social media and the international exposure of Chinese doctors and hospitals is bigger every day. And they want what they see and they want it better. So every day is their expectations change. So we need to be ready for that change. And as well, I mean, in China, like in any other country, we have to follow regulations, yeah? And different than other geographies, and I'm thinking of the IVDR implementation in Europe recently. In China, when things change, they change in the afternoon. So in the sense that there is no 5-year grace periods to adapt, things have to be taken into consideration, and you have to change your framework in order to adapt to the changing regulation. So it's very important that setting up that organization that is comfortable with change is there, and then that will significantly improve your chances of success. For example, back to my experience, early in our operations, we realized of that huge regulatory impact that we were going to have with those 200 plus registrations. At that time, we were based in Shanghai, and as you know, regulatory world sits in Beijing. So we basically moved the company to Beijing. Everybody, that was the biggest chunk of the effort, of the investment. We set up an own internal in-house regulatory team in Beijing. So, as you face challenges, you adapt and you change in order to aim for that success. If we talk now about the external success factors, and back to the channels issue. Some of you, as I said, might not yet be in China. Some of you might be exporting to China. So basically you have your factory, someone gives you a call, they order, they pay, and you ship your product, and you lose track of what happens in China. The majority of you will probably have or have had exclusive distributors that they act as your importer. And there you start getting some market feedback. Obviously, through the filter of your importer distributor. And then the next step is you break down that exclusive distributor into a number of regional distributors, but they can also be your importers for those regions with their own rights. But then you establish your local support and management to handle those regional distributors. Yeah? That's probably the third step in the China success story. Once you are getting from your local support and management that real feedback from the ground, is when you move into local sales and support. That's when you start invoicing in RMB. That's the big step, and that's when you are really controlling your own product and your own markets. From then on, you move to local manufacturing, yeah, and you continue with your local sales and support, and eventually, ultimately, as we have seen recently with many large companies, as Karen has as well mentioned, we establish local R&D together with that manufacturing, sales, and support. Yeah, so I think that's a normal trend of where you should be seeing yourself moving towards, depending on where you are, the speed and the level of commitment to China that you have in-house, and you can decide where to start, where to move, where to jump, where to leapfrog. Yeah, but don't be afraid. I mean, China is IVD is here to stay. We always use what's happening with pharma, and recently you have read the news about very large pharmaceuticals, overseas pharmaceuticals, changing their strategy with China and coming back in, partnering with large Chinese pharma players in order to move right there at the bottom line of that process with that local R&D development and the manufacturing. Okay. Market awareness has been mentioned already today. Understanding what is happening in China is key. Use the market intelligence available. It was hard work for the past sometimes, but I mean, organizations like CACLP and CIVD are making a big effort to change that and have reliable information and comprehensive information available. So invest in market study. My recommendation, don't buy just one. If you're going to buy at least two to compare and see. Focus on samples of industries or business that you know well, so you can see the quality of information you're getting, and then go for a different one or continue with that. Yeah? Visit China on a regular basis. There's no excuse not to visit China. Whether you are there or you're not, you need to be coming regularly. Yes, meet regularly with the competition, ideally. Yes, because then you know what's happening. And normally players in markets like China that is so big, they are very open to meet with competition because they understand how relevant that is for everybody. And then as well follow China macroeconomic strength that will always give you a hint of what's happening overall in the country and the industry. Two more to go. Value communication. Here is how we communicate that value proposition that we have earlier identified. Yeah, it's very important that we are able to transpire well into our market that value proposition. So, as Caroline has mentioned, use the right marketing communication tools to ensure message gets there. Be consistent on the message and the positioning. Focalize your efforts and resources on your agreed targets. I mean, Karen has said it, and it's huge, the market, and it's going to be even bigger. So, go for what you can bite, focus on where you can have a good business, and once you're comfortable with that, then you will expand. But don't try to grasp too much at the beginning because you will lose focus and resources. Very important, be present at industry events in China, as it has been mentioned already. They are an incredible source of business leads, yeah, and participate as well in academic events because it provides a lot of users exposure. And for us, especially what we call the users meeting, it was an incredible tool to increase brand loyalty and influence as well non-users to come to our product. My last slide today is what we call customer intimacy. Yeah? And this for me is the ultimate success in China. when you are able to create a direct bond with your users, yeah, because they will become the best source of information on how your product is doing, what the competition is doing, what kind of activities, what is happening in the market, yeah, and having that brand loyalty increase because they feel part of your project when you establish that customer intimacy is key for their success. Yeah? Remember that your biggest risk in China, and most of you are working with distributor, is that those clients remain your distributor's clients. So aiming for that customer intimacy will give you that direct access to your customers moving forward. I leave it here. Thank you very much. I'm open to answer any questions or concerns or comments you might have. Thank you very much, everyone.